Most men deceive themselves about their desires. Jung whispered the truth, but it was too raw, too painful to face. Today, we confront it, without illusion, without mercy. If you wish to master yourself, you must first understand the dangerous truths you have been avoiding. Listen carefully. The truths about male desire are not comfortable. They are cold, precise, and unyielding. To ignore them is to surrender control over your impulses, over your life, and ultimately over your fate. Carl Jung left a message, buried beneath layers of polite psychology and social niceties, revealing the raw mechanics of desire, dominance, and inner conflict. Few dare to confront it, for it forces men to reckon with their own vulnerabilities, their hidden appetites, and the subtle power games that define their relationships. Today, we will uncover what was too painful to hear, not to scare you, but to arm you. Knowledge is power, and desire, when understood, becomes a weapon. Do you truly know what you want, or have you been deceiving yourself all along? Most men wear a mask, a carefully constructed veneer of civility, ambition, and restraint. Beneath it lies a raw, often unacknowledged hunger, a desire that drives every decision, every conquest, and every compromise. The mask is a tool, a weapon even, and yet most men mistake it for their true face. They perform, they conceal, they manipulate without awareness, believing themselves virtuous or rational. And in that ignorance, they are weak. Consider the princes of Renaissance Italy, those who strode through city-states with golden ambition and iron resolve. Few achieved greatness, and fewer maintained it. Why? Because they failed to see the desires that swirled beneath the surface, their own and those of others. Florence, Milan, Rome, each court was a theater of subtle hunger, of ambition cloaked in courtesy, of schemes wrapped in the guise of friendship. And those who observed, who understood the hidden yearnings of men, ruled not by armies alone but by insight. Desire, in its purest form, is neither moral nor noble. It is power distilled into the most personal realm, the mind and body. And men, in their vanity, often dress it in colors that are acceptable to society. The ambitious man will speak of honor, yet his every action seeks advantage. The passionate man will declare love, yet he moves to possess or control. The mask is their shield against judgment. They camouflage in a world that punishes naked truth. But understand this: the mask does not erase desire. It amplifies it. Those who master their masks can manipulate perception, bending others to their will. Those who are mastered by their masks are blind prisoners of themselves. Look at history. Julius Caesar, revered as a conqueror, wore many masks: a loyal friend to the Senate, a populist champion to the people, a ruthless strategist to his enemies. Yet beneath these carefully chosen faces lay desire, the desire for power, for security, for immortality through legacy. Caesar did not deny his ambitions, he disguised them, directing perception as carefully as he directed legions. His genius was not in hiding his hunger entirely, but in choosing which mask to wear at every moment, which desire to reveal and which to conceal. This is the calculus of mastery. And you, watching this now, are no different. Your desires are cloaked in excuses, in socially acceptable narratives, in self-deception. How many times have you convinced yourself that ambition is merely hard work when it is hunger, that attraction is chemistry when it is leverage, that loyalty is virtue when it is strategy? Each mask you wear, each compromise you claim to be necessity, is a test of your insight. Are you aware of the forces driving your actions, or are you a puppet, your strings pulled by unexamined longing? Psychologically, the mask serves a dual purpose. Outwardly, it preserves reputation, maintains alliances, and prevents social punishment. Inwardly, it shields the ego for uncomfortable truths. Admit this: few men wish to confront the darkness within. It is far easier to convince oneself of noble motives than to face the raw, sometimes ugly truth of desire. And yet, those who evade this confrontation are doomed to repeat their failures. Power is never granted, it is taken, and it is preserved only by those who understand both the mask and the hunger beneath. Now consider manipulation. The man who reads desire in others sees the masks and the shadows they hide. He learns to exploit pretense, to mirror it, to provoke it. A smile, a word, a gesture. These become levers, subtle tools to bend intentions without resistance. Desire is the silent engine of influence, far more potent than force, far more enduring than fear. When you understand the masks around you, you control not only perception but outcome. You do not merely react to the world, you shape it. So, what is your mask? And whose desire are you underestimating? Whose hunger you have dismissed? Reflect, for the next layer is deeper, darker, and even more revealing. The shadow beneath the mask waits, and when it is confronted, it will change the way you see yourself and everyone around you. In the next segment, we will step into that shadow, unmasking the hidden impulses that dictate action, influence thought, and ultimately define power. To ignore it is to remain blind. To face it is to claim authority over your inner world. Have you ever felt a part of yourself that you cannot name? A force that whispers, urges, even commands, yet you push it away, claiming it is improper, dangerous, or beneath you. This is the shadow. Jung spoke of it as a hidden realm, a repository for the impulses we deny, the appetites we suppress, and the truths we refuse to see. Few men confront it. Fewer still master it. And those who do, they wield a power invisible to the uninitiated. Ask yourself, how often have your actions betrayed your conscious intentions? How often has a fleeting envy dictated a choice, a hidden lust shaped a strategy, a suppressed anger determined the outcome of an encounter? The shadow is not a phantom. It is the engine beneath the mask, the force that drives desire, manipulation, and ambition. Deny it, and it controls you from the dark. Embrace it, and it becomes a weapon, a tool for strategy, a source of unyielding insight into human nature. Consider Richard III, the man historians love to condemn. His ambition was raw, his cruelty undeniable, but it was also precise. Richard understood the shadow, both in himself and in those around him. He observed the concealed fears and desires of nobles, the quiet ambitions of allies, the latent insecurities of enemies. He did not shy from the darkness within. He engaged it, directing it. And in doing so, he transformed what others perceived as vice into a meticulously executed plan of power. His shadow was not chaos, it was calculated force. Now, reflect on your own shadow. Perhaps it appears as resentment toward a colleague, a compulsion you pretend does not exist, or a yearning you are ashamed to acknowledge. It is never idle. It accumulates energy while ignored, growing bolder, influencing thoughts, bending judgment, and undermining intention. Few men understand that the enemy is not always outside. Often, it is the unexamined self. The shadow is the silent adversary, waiting to seize control when you are distracted by illusion or pride. Psychologically, the shadow is a mirror. It reflects the qualities we condemn in others, revealing the truths we deny in ourselves. A man who mocks arrogance may secretly crave dominance. One who fears betrayal may harbor intentions of treachery. The shadow exposes the hypocrisies we build to protect our ego. And yet, in this confrontation lies opportunity. To recognize your shadow is to see the levers of influence in every interaction. To acknowledge it is to wield the hidden currents of human behavior with precision. History is filled with those who ignored their shadows. Take Antony, the Roman triumvir. His passions, unchecked and concealed beneath the mask of diplomacy, led him to disastrous entanglements. Cleopatra's allure, his desire, and his failure to confront the darker impulse within left him vulnerable to enemies who understood their own shadows. Contrast him with Augustus, who observed, restrained, and manipulated both desire and fear with cold calculation. The difference between ruin and dominion often lies in whether a man acknowledges the shadow or hides from it. But mastery is not mere recognition. It is integration. The shadow becomes strength when you harness it, when you allow it to inform strategy without permitting it to dictate action blindly. It teaches patience, subtlety, and the art of controlled provocation. A man who understands the darker impulses of others, jealousy, envy, lust, ambition, can turn these forces into instruments of influence. He does not judge, he observes. He does not suppress, he channels. And in this lies the essence of strategic power, knowledge of both the light and the darkness within. So, what do you see when you peer into your own shadow? Do you shy away, trembling before the truths that lurk there? Or do you step forward, unflinching, prepared to wield its insight with precision? The shadow is a guide, a weapon, a reflection of the forces that shape your life in every unseen moment. Ignore it, and it will betray you. Embrace it, and it will arm you with understanding far deeper than any superficial virtue. In the next segment, we will explore desire not as a passive force, but as an instrument of influence. We will examine how unchecked impulses become strategic tools, and how mastery over the shadow transforms mere longing into a calculated engine of power. Prepare, for the truths that follow will make the comfortable uneasy, and the unprepared vulnerable. Have you ever noticed how desire moves men more effectively than reason? It is not the law, nor rhetoric, nor even force that commands obedience. It is longing, carefully understood and deliberately directed. Desire is the invisible hand in every transaction of power, the silent motivator behind ambition, loyalty, and betrayal. To grasp this is to hold a weapon more precise than a sword, more enduring than armies, and infinitely more subtle than fear. Consider the courts of Europe, where kings and princes danced their intricate games. Few wielded the crown merely through birthright. Many owed their dominion to a mastery of human longing. Cardinal Richelieu, that master of strategy, understood that men obeyed not the state, but their desires, ambition, fear, love, or vanity. By appealing to these hidden currents, he bent the strongest egos, reshaping the course of France without drawing steel. Desire, when mapped and manipulated, becomes a lever. It is not to be ignored, nor denied, nor treated as a weakness. It is a tool. Ask yourself, whose desire do you see, and whose do you ignore? In every encounter, every alliance, every negotiation, there is a hidden calculus. People do not act as they profess, they act as they long. To influence them, you must read the patterns of craving beneath the surface. Does the ambitious man seek recognition, power, or fear of irrelevance? Does the loyal subordinate crave validation, advancement, or protection? These are not trifles. They are the instruments of control. Learn them, and you direct the play. Miss them, and you are a pawn in a game you do not even comprehend. History offers lessons in this art. Consider Cleopatra and Antony. Antony, enamored, allowed desire to dictate strategy, surrendering reason to passion. Cleopatra understood both her own desire and Antony's. She manipulated it, turning affection into leverage, attraction into obedience, and passion into political power. Desire, wielded correctly, transforms the most personal impulses into the most public influence. Antony's failure was in misreading the forces at play, in confusing longing with control. Cleopatra's mastery lay in recognizing that desire is ne'er innocent. It is a resource to be applied, shaped, and harnessed. Yet, this is not merely a tale of lovers and monarchs. Desire operates in every domain, from the boardroom to the battlefield, from the intimate to the political. A subordinate seeks recognition. A rival craves validation, a friend seeks approval. The man who observes these longings, who interprets them without judgment, who channels them strategically, becomes a force greater than brute strength. Every word you speak, every gesture you make, can stir desire in subtle ways, provoke it, satisfy it, or redirect it to your own ends. Psychologically, desire functions as both compass and weapon. It reveals what men truly value, often contrary to their public statements. It exposes their weaknesses, their ambitions, and their blind spots. To ignore, it is to walk unarmed into a battlefield you cannot see. To master, it is to wield influence invisibly, to move men without resistance, to convert longing into obedience. The art is subtle, requiring patience, observation, and a cold detachment. You must feel the currents without being swept by them, understand the motive without succumbing to illusion. But mastery carries responsibility. Desire is a double-edged instrument. Misread it, and it turns against you. Exploit it recklessly, and it breeds resentment, betrayal, and ruin. The most successful strategists do not merely manipulate desire, they orchestrate it, creating a symphony in which every note serves their purpose. They align ambition with obedience, vanity with compliance, craving with action. And in this orchestration lies the ultimate advantage, the ability to shape not only behavior, but reality itself. So, I ask you, whose desires are you reading? Whose hunger are you directing, and how long will you allow passion, unexamined and unmastered, to dictate your own path? The next revelation will confront you with the illusions of control, the ways men surrender to desire without realizing it, and how those who grasp it can turn even longing itself into an instrument of domination. Prepare, for what follows will strip away the comforting veil of self-deception and reveal the mechanisms that govern influence at its most intimate and powerful level. Do you believe you are in control of your life? Pause and reflect. How many times have you thought yourself master of circumstance only to discover that forces you ignored were quietly shaping your choices? Men rarely recognize the invisible hands that pull at their ambitions, desires, and fears. We tell ourselves we govern our impulses, our relationships, our destiny, yet most of us are led by them, blind and unaware. This is the illusion of control, a seductive deception that leaves the unwary exposed and powerless. History is full of men who mistook perception for authority. Consider Napoleon Bonaparte, the great tactician who reshaped Europe. He believed he commanded every battlefield, every alliance, every negotiation, and yet his downfall was as much about forces unseen as about armies defeated. Desire, envy, loyalty, and fear. These intangible currents moved nations more than his strategy ever could. Those who underestimated the subtle manipulations of human nature, even when they were brilliant generals, were undone. True control, the kind that endures, does not arise from force alone. It arises from understanding the currents that move men, including yourself. Ask yourself, when you plan, how often do you account for the unpredictability of human desire? How often do you assume your intentions are transparent, that others act as reason dictates, that your influence is absolute? These assumptions are the very definition of illusion. The man who believes he controls all is already being controlled by ignorance, by vanity, by unexamined longing. To recognize the illusion is to reclaim power, to see the world as it truly is, a theater of hidden motives, shifting loyalties, and desires that masquerade as reason. Look at the courts of Renaissance Italy, where princes vied for dominance over city-states and mercenary armies. Few realized that wealth, diplomacy, and force were secondary to perception and manipulation. Florence fell not to armies alone, but to the cunning orchestration of fear and desire. Those who thought themselves masters of strategy were often puppets in the hands of men who understood the subtleties of influence. Control, in its truest form, is invisible. It is the quiet alignment of human motivation with one's objectives, the orchestration of events that appears effortless to observers. Psychologically, the illusion of control is deeply seductive. It offers comfort, confidence, and a sense of identity. Men cling to it because acknowledging its falsity forces confrontation with vulnerability. Admit this. You have plans disrupted, judgments misread, and intentions subverted by people and circumstances you believed were subordinate to your will. These are not failures of morality or intellect, they are failures of insight. Control is never granted. It is recognized in the currents beneath appearances, in the desires that dictate behavior, and in the shadows of power that move silently, yet with relentless force. Consider Julius Caesar once more. He appeared to rule Rome with absolute authority. Yet the conspirators around him operated on motives he either ignored or misunderstood. His control was partial, constrained by human desire, fear, and ambition he failed to fully anticipate. And when he fell, the illusion was shattered. True mastery lies in seeing these currents before they strike, in navigating them with precision, and in accepting that absolute control over men or events is an aspiration, never a reality. The lesson is not despair. Recognizing the illusion is the first step to wielding real influence. You cannot command every impulse, every envy, every whim, but you can anticipate them, exploit them, and redirect them to your advantage. The man who understands the limits of his control sees where leverage exists, where strategy succeeds, and where patience is the weapon of triumph. He acts not with blind certainty, but with calculated foresight. He does not struggle against forces he cannot change, he bends them, subtly, shaping outcomes without appearing to move them at all. Now, reflect, whose illusions of control are you maintaining, and whose are you exploiting? What forces, unseen yet relentless, are already guiding your choices? In the next segment, we will explore how confronting pain and truth, the raw realities you have been avoiding, transforms weakness into insight. We will examine how discomfort reveals power, how mastery begins not in victory, but in ruthless awareness of your own vulnerabilities. Prepare, for the next revelation will strip away complacency and confront you with truths that most men fear to acknowledge. Only those willing to see clearly will emerge armed with understanding. Have you ever faced a truth so sharp it seared your confidence, your illusions, even your very identity? Pain is not merely suffering, it is revelation. It strips away pretense, exposes the weaknesses you have ignored, and illuminates the forces that shape your life. Few men embrace this truth. Most flee it, seek distractions, or invent excuses, and yet those who endure it, who observe it with cold precision, gain a clarity that is a weapon, a guide, and a lever of influence. Consider the great conquerors, men who reshaped the fate of nations. Alexander the Great, after the death of Hephaestion, did not retreat into denial. He confronted grief, loss, and the sharp pangs of human limitation. He allowed pain to sharpen his understanding of loyalty, mortality, and ambition. From suffering, he extracted strategy. He recognized that human weakness is a predictable force, and that by understanding it, your own and that of others, you wield power invisible to those blinded by comfort. Ask yourself, when was the last time discomfort revealed your truth? How often have you ignored the sting of rejection, the embarrassment of failure, or the humiliation of inadequacy, telling yourself it was trivial or temporary? These are not mere accidents of life. They are messages, signals of weakness, desire, and vulnerability. The man who refuses to see them is like a commander, blind to the movements of his army. The man who studies them, however, transforms every misstep into insight, every wound into advantage. History is rife with examples. Consider Richard the Lionheart, celebrated for courage in battle, yet subjected to capture and ransom, betrayed by those he trusted. Pain revealed the limits of loyalty, the fragility of alliances, and the caprice of fortune. He could have yielded to despair, but instead he learned to navigate power. One must account not only for the intentions of men, but for the inevitability of suffering and miscalculation. Pain exposes reality in ways victory cannot. Victory flatters, suffering teaches. Psychologically, pain is the mirror of desire and fear, the sting of unfulfilled longing, the ache of betrayal, the bitterness of envy. These are not weaknesses to suppress, they are signals to read. What do they tell you about the ambitions of others, about the boundaries of influence, about the vulnerabilities that can be leveraged or protected? To ignore this intelligence is to remain blind. To embrace it is to gain foresight far beyond ordinary perception. Take Cleopatra again, who mastered desire and influence not merely through charm, but by understanding the pain of her allies and adversaries. She observed their loss, their humiliation, their fear, and used it to shape outcomes. Antony's weakness, his flares of jealousy and distraction by passion, revealed points of manipulation. Cleopatra did not deny these realities, she weaponized them. Pain, whether in oneself or in others, is never idle. It directs the currents of strategy, of dominance, of survival. Yet, not all who encounter pain gain mastery. Most retreat into denial, distraction, or false consolation. They flee the discomfort that could illuminate hidden truths, leaving opportunity to those bold enough to endure it. True power demands confrontation, the recognition that suffering is neither accidental nor meaningless. It is a guide. It reveals the mechanics of human behavior and the subtle levers of influence. Those who ignore it, who soften its edges with rationalization, remain slaves to circumstance, bound by impulses they fail to understand. So reflect. What truths are your wounds concealing? What lessons lie in your humiliation, your frustration, your disappointment? Can you endure them long enough to extract insight, or will you turn away, forever blind to the forces shaping your life? The path of mastery is never comfortable. It requires embracing discomfort, analyzing it, and transforming it into clarity. Pain is not punishment, it is instruction. It is the lens through which the strategist sees the battlefield of human desire. In the next segment, we will confront the ultimate transformation, how self-knowledge, tempered by awareness of desire, shadow, and pain, becomes strategy itself. We will explore the final step of mastery, where insight becomes action, and understanding becomes power. Brace yourself, for the truths that follow will challenge not only what you desire, but how you wield it. What does it mean to be a man who commands himself before commanding others? The Machiavellian male is not defined by brute strength, charm, or social approval. He is defined by mastery. Mastery over desire, over impulse, over perception, and over the currents of influence that run through every interaction. He sees the world as it is, not as he wishes it to be, and shapes it with deliberate precision. Ask yourself, do you navigate life, or are you navigated by it? History offers countless examples of men who achieved greatness through understanding rather than force. Caesar, again, is instructive. He did not conquer merely by the weight of legions. He understood loyalty, fear, and ambition in the hearts of men. He leveraged these forces, anticipating reactions, bending allies and adversaries alike, orchestrating outcomes that seemed inevitable to those who watched from the sidelines. Mastery is never accidental. It is the product of observation, strategy, and calculated restraint. The Machiavellian male begins with himself. Desire is acknowledged but controlled. Impulse is noted but not indulged. Weakness is examined, vulnerabilities catalogued, and every misstep transformed into knowledge. He cultivates patience, knowing that timing amplifies influence. He understands that power is not only seized in moments of action but built quietly, invisibly, in the management of self. Who governs his passions, governs the battlefield of the mind before he ever confronts the world. Consider Frederick the Great of Prussia. He did not merely inherit a throne. He studied, he disciplined, he manipulated perception, and he controlled desire, both his own and that of those around him. His victories were not random strokes of genius. They were the culmination of meticulous preparation and psychological insight. He understood that men are moved as much by expectation, fear, and longing as by strategy. The Machiavellian male learns the same lesson. The battlefield of life is as much internal as it is external. Power manifests in subtle ways. Observe the interactions of men and women, friends and rivals. Who influences whom, who acts, and who reacts. The man who comprehends desire, shadow, and pain. The lessons we have explored does not act blindly. He aligns circumstance, timing, and human motivation to his ends. He does not seek to dominate through force alone. He bends perception, shapes expectation, and engineers outcomes that appear inevitable. This is the quiet genius of influence, a domain far more enduring than any display of strength or courage. The Machiavellian male is also a student of failures, his own and others. He examines betrayal not as a moral slight but as intelligence, a map of weaknesses, desires, and hidden agendas. He analyzes envy not as a grievance but as a tool, leverage waiting to be applied. He understands that human nature is predictable in patterns, if not in details, and that power is maintained by navigating these patterns with calm, deliberate strategy. Every slight, every disappointment, every victory is data. Every interaction is an opportunity to sharpen insight. Yet, mastery demands sacrifice. Comfort, certainty, and innocence are casualties. Few are willing to observe themselves with such ruthless honesty. Most men cling to illusion, allowing vanity, desire, and pride to dictate action. The Machiavellian male does not. He confronts the shadow, the mask, the pain, and emerges not unscathed but unbound. He acts with foresight because he sees clearly. He influences because he understands deeply, and in this discipline lies authority that cannot be conferred, only earned. So, ask yourself, are you merely a participant in the world, reacting to circumstances, or are you orchestrating outcomes with deliberate intent? Are you governed by desire, impulse, and fear, or do you wield them as instruments of strategy? Mastery begins with observation, but it is completed through action, through the transformation of knowledge into influence, through the deliberate shaping of reality to align with purpose. The Machiavellian male is not a figure of moral judgment, but of strategic clarity. He sees human nature, and he uses that vision. He does not act out of sentiment, nor flinch at discomfort. He calculates, he manipulates, he endures, and he prevails. And now, as we conclude this exploration, consider the ultimate challenge. Once you recognize the forces that move desire, shadow, and pain, will you wield them or remain enslaved by them? The next step, should you dare, is to apply this understanding, to convert insight into mastery, knowledge into dominance, and awareness into power that endures beyond circumstance. Power is rarely seized openly. It moves silently, invisibly, through desire, fear, and ignorance. Do you see how easily men are guided by what they cannot name, by impulses they refuse to confront? To control without being noticed is the art few dare to practice. Observe, understand, manipulate with precision. The world bows not to force alone, but to strategy concealed beneath civility, charm, and subtle influence. Ask yourself, who truly governs your choices, you or the unseen currents of human nature you ignore. Every word, every gesture, every omission becomes leverage in the hands of the attentive. The mastery of men begins within. First, conquer the self. Then, wield the shadows that shape others. If this revelation unsettled you, it should. Discomfort is the doorway to dominance. Reflect on it. Apply it. Watch the outcomes manifest without your hand ever appearing to move. Comment below what truths about human nature disturb or empower you. Subscribe to arm yourself with more Machiavellian strategies. Share this knowledge with those daring enough to see the world as it truly is.